Hey everybody, this is William Green, and these are my green pets. Today you're looking at the wonderful specimen of Bulbophyllum echinolabium. HAL is his clonal name, and this I think is going to be the last flower that we see for a while from HAL. The other bud up here, it does look like there might be something going on here, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. This is the first time that there's been such a delay between the next bud coming out. So HAL might be done. And he's had a good run. He's currently on his 14th flower since he started blooming last August on this particular spike. If you'll recall, when he started blooming last fall, last summer, there were 3 spikes. He was covered in leaves, and during the winter, I split him up into 5 pieces, and then he kind of started dropping leaves after he got split up, but he kept blooming throughout the winter. So I just wanted to say that one last look at HAL before this bloom falls. It'll probably be done tomorrow. It's been a very nice long run. I'm not sure when the next time we're going to see HAL in bloom, but hopefully those of you who managed to get a division of him will be able to show me your blooms in the future. As for the other orchids, we are in full summer growth mode. This is lovely Elizabeth dropping one of its back leaves but putting up 3 new growths. This is the Bulbomedusae. And I kind of want to name this plant Winter Breeze. What do you think? Winter Breeze sounds kind of cool because it blooms in the winter and it looks nice in the breeze. And plus it's kind of you don't ever think of a winter breeze, you think of a summer breeze. So anyway, thinking about that as a name, clonal name for this plant. This is my Bulbophyllum rufinum, and rufinum has got a big spike on it right here, and then a smaller one growing up there, right there. And that's nice. So it turns out this rufinum does not really have a blooming season. It just kind of puts up a spike whenever the growths have completed growing. Let's go over here. This is what's left of the Max 10. It is much smaller than it used to be, but now I'm going to use this opportunity to really focus on how to grow this plant well. When you have a plant as big as the one that I had, it kind of just starts taking care of itself. You don't really have to focus too much on culture because it just, I don't know, I could really ignore this plant and it just did fine. So now that it's a little smaller, it's a little bit more susceptible to variations in culture, and I'm going to use that as an opportunity to learn about it. Let's see, this is my Cygnodius Wine Delight up here. And I brought it outside kind of hesitantly because I thought, oh my gosh, the bugs are going to eat it. The bugs love to eat these. I don't know if it's just their leaves are tasty or what, but so far it's been okay, and it seems to be growing all right. Let's see, down here, let's look at our temperature. 34 degrees Celsius, 49% humidity. It is hot and humid. Here are some Cattleya rex seedlings. They are doing well. But something about this Cattleya rex that I don't really understand, and I guess several of the plants are like this. The roots might be growing really well when it's indoors, but as soon as it comes outdoors, the roots stop growing. I mean, they just stop. I'm not quite sure what that is. Maybe it's the temperature change? Maybe it's the change in humidity? I don't know. I thought that with the heat and humidity, the roots would grow even more vigorously, but every year this happens. So if you have any insights on root growth, be happy to hear that. Okay, here's my Frag Grande putting out a new growth, and here's the PAF table. I love these wonderful, wonderful plants, and we got lots of new growth on several of these. This is my big award-winning PAF. This is Prime Child Apollo, and Apollo he didn't bloom last year, but I think if you look in the leaf axle here, you can see that there is something pushing up, so we're gonna keep our fingers crossed. This is right on time for it. It usually pushes up a spike in June and the blooms open in July, so he seems to be right on time. This is my PAF Michael Kopovitz, and this is Moonbeam. And Moonbeam is a very unusual clone because in most Michael Kopovitz have kind of a greenish reddish color, but this one is a very pale yellow. It's very unusual, so I'm hoping that that will be in bloom this summer, so I can take it to the the judging center, and maybe it will get an award. Really excited about it. I would love to breed this plant with this plant, because they would produce like something like a pale yellow Prince Edward of York, something really unusual. And this one is also a path that is primed and ready to bloom. This is a Belle Royale, and its parent is awarded. This is High Spirits, so hopefully this is actually High Spirits by self, so it's a selfing of an awarded plant. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully it will be blooming this summer too. Here's a Oncidium hybrid, Oncidium speckled spire, and it's got really nice flowers. We've been watching the spike on this develop for weeks and weeks, months actually, and it's in bloom. And I brought it outside, so the flowers aren't going to last as long outside like this, but they are still very nice, and they're very sweet smelling. Let's see, down here I got on my my phals. God, it seems like as soon as I start recording in my neighborhood, just every noise in the world starts happening in the neighborhood. Okay, anyway, we got this Falschilleriana. I'm really hoping that it will start putting out new growth. It's got a new root coming out, that's a good sign. But I need to grow some, so I need some growth too. This is my Bulbo Antoniferum, and I actually split this plant and sold a piece of it to Tanner Serpa of Serpa Design. You need to check out his page. He makes really cool terrariums. This is my little Neo Falcata, and it's got new root growth down there, and it's pushing out new roots here, and it's got a spike in the back that's just kind of been sitting around doing nothing for a while. But right there, see him? So that is looking good. Here's my little Amiciella monticola. A bug ate the root as soon as I brought it out, but luckily it's got another root on the bottom here, so hopefully the bugs won't get that one. Let's see, this is a Nepenthes. This is hybrid. It's got really nice striping on the lip of the pitchers, and that's a nice new growth coming out. And here's some more Cattleya seedlings. Once again, like I said, these were growing pretty vigorously when they were inside for the winter, but as soon as they came outside, they really ceased growing. All except for the roots that are touching the floor, touching the ground, touching the, whatever you want to call it, the floor, the bottom of the container. See, those are still growing. So I'm wondering if it's a temperature thing. See, here's another example. The root that's flying in the air stopped growing, but the root that's touching the metal down there has continued to grow. So I don't know if it's a temperature thing or if it has to be in contact with something, but I'm trying to figure out these little Cattleyas. And speaking of Cattleyas, one of these seedlings, there's total about 20 of them that came out of a flask, so they're all siblings, but one of them is in sheath. So let's go inside into the green room and see how it's doing. Okay, let's go into the grow room. Now this is where I keep all my orchids in the winter, but right now it's pretty empty. You can see almost everything's been taken out except for a couple plants. And the reason I've left them in here is because I want to make sure that they do not get eaten by bugs, or that some kind of strange outdoor occurrence does not happen to them. These are both very important to me. But what's really exciting right now, this is my largest Cattleya rex seedling. Remember, I got these in a flask in March 2014, so 4 years ago is when I got these as little baby seedlings. This is the largest one. For some reason, it's always been the largest one. It's always grown the fastest. It's always been the biggest. Be that as, I'm not exactly sure why, but that's just, this is the most vigorous one. And if you look right in the leaf axil of the new growth, we are looking at a sheath. And if you know anything about Cattleyas, you know that sheaths mean flowers. There's no guarantee that that's what this is going to mean, but I have been watching this thing very carefully, and as the leaf, continues to grow out, I will you know, I've been putting my eyes up to it real close to look for anything in that sheath. Now, according to Arthur Chadwick's website, Chadwick Orchids, he has a really good page on how to grow this particular species. This is a summer blooming cattleya. A lot of cattleyas bloom in the winter, which is great because winter is when we need the flowers the most, but this is actually a summer blooming cattleya. And Chadwick's page describes the bloom cycle basically as that buds will appear in the sheath just as the pseudobulb is nearing completion. So within the next few weeks, the idea is sometime in June we will see buds start to push up into that sheath, if in fact this plant is going to bloom. Of course, there's no guarantee that it's going to bloom. It might not bloom. I just put out a blank sheath. But if it is going to bloom, the buds will start appearing hopefully within a month or so. We should be seeing something. And they'll continue to grow up, and the plant, since it is a summer bloomer, we would be looking at blooms in July, possibly end of June, maybe as late as August for this plant. So we're going to keep all of our fingers crossed. I need all of you to clap your hands and turn around 3 times and cross your fingers and cross your toes and say Cattleya rex is going to bloom, and write it on a piece of paper and put it under your pillow at night. And anything else that you can think of to see if this plant will decide to actually go ahead and invest the energy into a flower or 2 for us. That would be absolutely wonderful. We'd love to see it. After all these years, we'd love to see this plant finally in bloom. And actually, if you watched my time lapse a few weeks ago, you saw that I had time lapsed my orchid collection for about 4 months. Well, I have time-lapsed the entire development of this Cattleya rex sheath. So if it does go ahead and bloom, then we're going to have a time-lapse of the entire process, from it growing up as a pseudobulb to it pushing out the sheath, to the buds pushing out, to the bloom. And there's nothing like that on record. No one has ever done anything like that. So it will be the only time-lapse of a Cattleya rex orchid in bloom, which I think is going to be pretty cool. If many of you guys have capability to do time-lapse, if you have a GoPro or a device like an iPad or something, they all have got this time-lapse software built into them. And there's really not a whole lot of time-lapse out there for orchids. There's a lot of flowers blooming. There's a lot of time-lapses of flowers blooming, but what's really fascinating is to see how the plant grows, how a little bump on the side of the rhizome swells up and telescopes out to become a growth, which then extends out and then flowers push out of it. That whole process is very poorly documented, and I think that just not only is it interesting for disciplines such as I don't know if it's not called bioengineering, but it's like bioarchitecture. It's like building structures to emulate natural objects. I think seeing how the pseudobulb develops, I think it could have some really important implications towards the design and construction of large structures in the human world. You know, if we make our structures more similar to natural structures, you know, this organism has been evolving for millions of years. You know, it's gone through a lot of trial and error. There's been a lot of research and development into this design. So I feel like, you know, as humans, it would be very intelligent of us to pay more attention to the way things happen in nature and try to emulate that with our own construction and our own systems. Just my opinion on that. The other plant, sorry to be so long-winded today, just haven't talked to you guys in a while. This is Mormodia Jumbo World. This is a very popular plant when it blooms, and the bugs just love to eat the leaves. And another thing is, as I was telling you earlier, when it's indoors like this, the root tips are this lovely green color, growing very happily. As soon as I take this outside, the root tips stop growing. They just kind of, the white velamen just kind of solidifies over the growing tip, and it just stops growing. And I don't know why. I'm wondering if it's temperature, you know, because it's cooler. It is cooler in here. Is it day length? You know, it's possible because we're at a 12.5-hour day inside the grow room, but outside the days are more like 14 hours long. So, or maybe it's just the change in conditions, you know, slight as they may be, or maybe they're not that slight and I don't realize it. But yeah, all of my orchids do that. When they'll have actively growing roots, and then as soon as they go outside, those root tips will stop growing. So, interesting. Alright everybody, well that's it for today. I really appreciate you stopping by and checking in on my green pets. I will be posting some other plants that are for sale. I definitely want to continue reducing my collection down to only the most important plants to me. So stay tuned for plants that are available. And until next time, see you later. Happy growing, guys. Keep it green.